Most of us have had the experience of being in another country, which most probably means we don't speak the language. And I don't know about you, but this makes me feel quite vulnerable because all of a sudden you don't feel very confident and competent anymore. Well, if that's been you, that was actually me for 3 months because I was in countries where I did not understand the language. And at first, it was incredibly frustrating. But interestingly, it made me become more heightened in other ways beyond just my speech to the world around me and especially to people's behavior. I started watching people, hearing what they said, seeing how it made me feel. And since I could not understand the words, I was paying a lot more attention to body language, nonverbal cues, all of it. And then I noticed something incredible. Even though I couldn't understand the words people were saying, I could see almost everything I needed to know. The way that couple was arguing in Austria, where his hands were on his head, he was backing away from her while she was trying to step closer to him and guilt written all over her face. Yeah, something was amok there. And the businessman that rushed past, checking his watch every few seconds, the elderly woman sitting on the bench, watching the world go by with her peaceful smile. There was so much I was able to pick up in those instances and you realize that you've been fluent in a language your entire life. It's just you didn't know you were speaking it. And to me, it's the most truthful language in the world. That language is behavior. This is exactly what happened to me during my travels, and it completely changed how I navigate every single relationship in my life. Because this is what I've discovered. People can lie with their words. They can hide how they really feel and what they say, but very few can hide it in how they act. And if they are hiding it in how they act, it can only be for so long. So, hey everybody, welcome back to Get In Your Driving with Maria. And today we're diving deep into why I think behavior is the most important language you'll ever learn. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand how mastering this one skill, I think, can really protect you from a lot of wasted time, from your peace. It can deepen your most important relationships, and it can ensure that you probably don't get played again. Because here's the truth, road signs never lie and neither does people's behavior. You just have to know how to read them. So buckle up because we're about to learn the language that will change everything. We're going to start out now talking about why this matters for drivers. Because I always like to think about the why of things. That's just me. So, for years, I think I was just born this way. It's always been my personality. I have observed people. And one of the most common themes that I've noticed is that we love to complain, lament, and be pessimistic as people. Like, there's a seduction to pessimism. There really is. And this is universal. And one specific lament I have been hearing a lot on social media and just culture in the last couple of years is this one, which is people saying, and this is going to be specifically in context to romantic relationships, that they felt like they got played at some point. This could also be in friendships or work dynamics, whatever, but I think you hear it the most in romantic context. Anyways, one way or another, they felt they were somehow taken advantage of. And I'm sure you are aware of the vernacular that I'm talking about here. So, I tend to be a listener of people. So, sorry, let me rephrase. I tend to be a listener, and for some reason, I've just tended to be somebody that people naturally open up to. So, a lot of times I catch myself listening to people and them really telling me their stories and their life and whatnot. And I was really recognizing that in all these stories I was being told, there was always this underlying feeling of like betrayal and they had been blindsided by someone they trusted. We're still kind of talking about romantic relationships here. And honestly, I just started hearing this pattern so much that it was really making me feel uncomfortable. It was leaving me wondering if this is how all romantic relationships work and whatnot. And it's not because I was judging people, but because I actually could like see myself in this story that I was being told as well. So one day I heard someone say something that completely changed my perspective. And This guy said, his name is Stefan Speaks, and he said, "You don't get played. You allow yourself to get played." And I remember thinking, one, I laughed. When something's like super true, I think I'm very good at just like laughing, being like, okay. And I remember thinking, like, ouch, that's so harsh, but that's so freaking true. And I didn't love hearing it, but the more I sat with it, the more it just made so much sense. And I think this is what he meant and what I realized. So, yes, in the very beginning, again, we're talking romantic context here, but I do think this can be applied to everything. But let's stick with romantic. In the beginning, when you know absolutely nothing about someone, you are vulnerable, right? Like you can get played because you literally have no information to go off of. You don't know other people that they know. But the thing is, after they betray you or play you or cross a line, so to speak, when you look back, I do think you can see things clearly. And I personally believe there are always signs. We just chose to ignore them. So, this realization sent me down this rabbit hole where I became completely obsessed with one question, which is, how do we navigate relationships better? And essentially, how do we read people and how do we have better interactions? And how can we really be honest with ourselves about this process of just relationship in general? Like, how do we go about this properly? Because I didn't want to get played, but I also didn't want to fall into a toxicity of, I can't trust anyone, because that's just also not healthy. So I really was kind of like with these questions in the back of my mind, racking my brain. And I think I was thinking that there had to be a middle ground between being naive and being cynical, right? Like, okay, there has to be a middle ground here because, yeah, I don't want to be what people would consider naive, but I also don't want to be cynical all the time. Again, there had to be a way to protect yourself without like closing your heart off completely and becoming bitter. And as usual, it all came back to truth because it always does for me. And basically following it wherever it led me because I'm just a truth seeker at my core. Like, if I really had to say one thing about myself, is I really just care about the truth so much, maybe even sometimes to a fault. I don't know. And the biggest breakthrough I had was this, that the best and most reliable form of truth when it comes to other people is watching someone's behavior. Not their words, not their promises, not their explanations or their excuses, their behavior. Because look, life is tough and relationships are already so complex because we are so complex as human beings. So, whenever we want to get into a relationship with anyone, the biggest thing that we're fighting is two people that are different, right? We have differences. But what I want you to understand is you really do have the power to see clearly and the power to read the road signs that people are constantly putting out there for you. Because think about it. We spent years in school learning algebra and chemistry and all these subjects that most of us never use in real life. As you can tell, I hate school. And but did anybody ever teach us how to read people? No, they didn't. Like all these social skills that are becoming very important in our world right now because nobody seems to have them, we were not taught. And listen, I'm not here to blame school because that's not productive, but I'm here because I've taken a lot of time to think about these things that I wasn't taught in a traditional manner and break them down for myself and then break them down for you. So here's the thing. When you can read behavior and when you can understand this language, because I think it is a language that everyone is speaking, but most people just aren't consciously paying attention to it, I genuinely think you stop being a passenger in toxic dynamics, you stop getting caught off guard, and you stop having this feeling of being blindsided. And again, this isn't about being cynical or suspicious of everyone you meet. I really think it's just about watching people and being wise. And again, this podcast is about being your own driver. So this is all about staying in the driver's seat of your life by paying attention to very valuable information that's right in front of you. Because the truth is, people are always showing you who they are. It just takes courage to believe them. All right, so we talked about why this matters, and now I want to get into the 3 life-changing reasons I think that I'm going to try to use to persuade you maybe to just help you understand what I mean by this whole behavior is a language thing. So, now that we talked about why this matters, again, I want to share with you these 3 specific reasons why I do think being able to read someone's behavior will transform every single relationship in your life. And these really aren't just theoretical concepts. Like, these are practical tools that I've used and have really changed my world and my relationships, and they help me feel like I'm the driver in my life. So, the first reason is solely just about protection, because how to screen people early on so you don't waste your time and energy on the wrong relationships is very important. The second reason is about connection, because how reading behavior actually deepens your most important relationships, instead of making you cynical and defensive against the other person. And then the third reason is about power, because this skill ensures, I think, that for the most part, you're not going to feel played again, because you will be able to understand what's happened and hopefully see it before it comes. So, again, protection, connection, power. Each of these reasons have personally taught me something very crucial just about human nature and about how to create the kind of life that I want to live and the kind of relationships that I want to have. So, reason number one, screening and protecting your peace early on. So, let me tell you about the first life changing thing that I think happened to me when I really started to tell myself that behavior is a language, is that when you screen people, it allows you to understand a lot about them before you get super emotionally invested. Now, I want to be super clear. I'm not judging people. I'm screening them. This is about understanding people so that you can make informed decisions for yourself about how close you want to be to this person. I have learned this lesson a few times, but I think the nail was in the coffin with one of my last friendships that just really solidified all of this. So, I once met this girl and we became friends. And when we hung out one on one, we really just had like the most amazing time. I felt like we connected. Our conversations were open, honest, comfortable. Like, I really genuinely enjoyed her company, and I did feel like she enjoyed mine. And I really thought, like, wow, this could be such a meaningful friendship. But then something interesting happened, because whenever we hung out in group settings, it was like she just became a total different person. Like, she wouldn't really acknowledge me anymore. She would gravitate towards the other friends in the group. It really was this feeling of like, I'm not cool enough when your other friends are around, and like I didn't fit into the image that she wanted them to see of her. And I'm not gonna lie, this actually really, really hurt me in the beginning, and my feelings were confused, and I started really like questioning myself and feeling insecure. Like, was I doing something wrong? Was I not fun enough for her? Was I not cool enough for her? Was I not pretty enough for her? But after this happened a few times, I made a conscious decision to just step back and really like observe objectively. And when I did that, I really realized that this was not about me at all. What I realized was that in group settings, she felt the need to impress certain people. And I could tell she was performing, honestly, because she was acting very different and she was just doing whatever she could to win those people's approval. But again, with me one on one, she didn't have to perform. I think she felt like she could be herself, and that's why she was so different in private versus public. I'm not saying this is healthy. I'm just saying this is what I saw her do, right? Because I was watching her behavior objectively instead of just reacting to it emotionally. Like, we never had a conversation about this. Like, we're not friends now, just to be clear, but I never talked to her about this. But because I was able to just watch her behavior, it really helped me understand the why behind it. And more importantly, it helped me make a choice about what this information meant for our friendship, what it meant for me. And what I learned early on with her was that we weren't going to be super close. We just were not going to be able to be super close and intimate, because I knew not to lean on her in moments that mattered, because when push came to shove, she showed me through behavior that she wasn't going to be there. She would end up choosing other people or just end up being busy, whatever. Now, again, did this realization hurt? Of course. Of course. But again, because I was able to watch her behavior and take my emotions out of it and just be honest with myself about what I was seeing, it didn't cut that deep. And just overall, I saved myself so much time and energy. Like, can you imagine if I would have just tried to have a conversation with her about this? Like, yeah, I could have, but to be honest, I didn't feel that she had the maturity to have the conversation, if I'm being honest, and it just didn't feel worth it. So, anyways, think about how different this could have gone. Like, I could have continued to get my hopes up every time we hung out in a group. Like, I could have nagged her about why she felt this way. Like I could have invested more and more of myself trying to like make up, like trying to prove to her that I was worth it. But the truth is like I wasn't a priority. Like I just wasn't. And that was the truth of it. And sometimes, like I always say, I personally like the cold hard truth. So again, watching her behavior, it gave me clarity. And clarity is a gift that I think you give yourself when you have the courage to see people for who they really are and not who you hope them to be or become for you. And again, here's what I really want you to understand about behavior. And I'm actually going through it right now with this again, so I'm talking to myself here as well. Their behavior isn't about you. People's behavior isn't about you. It's 9 times out of 10 about them. And again, this is still a very painful lesson to learn because I think our logic really knows this and we're like, okay, I know that makes sense. But our emotions are just not able to process it. So, anyway, this girl needed to perform in groups and be approved in groups had everything to do with her insecurities. And they had nothing to do with me being not as cool or whatever. Because, again, it's not about you. But here's what is about you. Your response to what you're seeing is about you. And again, you get to decide what to do with the information that people's behavior is giving you. You get to decide. So when you watch people closely in the beginning, and again, in the beginning of any relationship, watch people like a hawk. When you pay attention to how they treat you in different contexts, how they speak to you when others aren't around and no one's watching, how they react to you when they're uncomfortable, what do they do when they get inconvenienced? Gather data because that data is going to help you make informed decisions about who get access to your time, your energy, and your heart. And I'm sure many of you have heard this, or maybe you haven't, but our girl Taylor Swift, she said on the podcast with Travis Kelce that like went super viral. She said, you should think of your energy like it's an expensive luxury item. And you know what? That really is true because our energy is so valuable. And I think many times we do give it away too freely. So again, you should really, really think about this. And at the end of the day, have self respect, have dignity for you. And what I always try to preach on this podcast and to myself is to have this mentality is what makes you the driver in your life. And again, it makes you the driver, and this is you taking responsibility for yourself and your actions and who you let in. Because while you can't control how other people behave, and we all know this, you can absolutely control how much of yourself you invest based on how these people are showing up for you. Okay, friends, let's get into reason 2. So, we talked about protecting your peace and screening. Now, I want to talk about how when you watch people's behavior, I really believe this can deepen and it can create very intimate connections with the people that are already in your life. So, when you learn to read the people closest to you and you do this from a place of curiosity, not from a place of judgment, I really think you're able to understand people much better and create a super deep level of intimacy. So, this isn't this is about moving beyond really surface level interactions and into real understanding and connection, and it's about choosing again curiosity over defensiveness and consideration over reaction. So, I'm going to share a story about someone in my life. And this person in my life, she's done this for a long while. I've known her a while now. And whenever she feels overwhelmed, she uses what I like to call her end of the world voice. And this is a tone that is just very dramatic and intense. And honestly, when she uses it, I can't stand it. And it more than anything, it makes me very nervous. It makes the energy nervous and it's hard to focus. And most of the time, I just am not somebody that believes in making any type of situation catastrophic, even if it is catastrophic, because it just doesn't help. It just doesn't help. And these types of tones and energies are just stressful, in my opinion. And this drove me absolutely crazy about her for a very long time. And I would either snap at her or I would walk away because I just really couldn't handle the voice. It would make me want to crawl out of my skin. And every time this happened, it would really create this tension between us. And, I didn't like that. But as time passed and I started paying attention to her behavior more intentionally and becoming curious, I began to understand, oh, she wasn't using that voice to be annoying or dramatic. She was using it because she's genuinely overwhelmed. And that's just her way and what her voice does and where her tone goes to when she feels that she's drowning and she doesn't know how to handle what's happening. So once I was able to see it from that point of view, I could see her behavior for what it was, and it really wasn't about me or about being annoying, and this really changed everything. And now when she starts to use that voice, instead of allowing myself to just get frustrated or defensive or storm out, I'll look at her and I say, "Can you please stop using that voice because I can't focus when you do." But I make sure to say it gently and lovingly because I've realized, okay, she doesn't do this on purpose. And you know what happens almost every single time that I do that? She looks at me, she takes a breath, and she says, "You're right. I'm sorry." And think about it. If I had reacted with frustration like I used to, she might have just shut down or gotten offensive. And the reason that she's able to listen and respond so well is because I took the time to understand her, to be calm, to choose curiosity over my judgment of her doing this. And again, to choose consideration over reaction. And I once read a quote that I think really captures this perfectly of like deepening intimacy and choosing to get curious about people. The person said, "As I get older, I am starting to realize that the purest form of love is consideration. When someone thinks about how things would make you feel. In any bond, how much they care about you is found in how much they consider you." And I really find this to be so true because I chose to consider this person, right? To ask, why is she doing this? What's the deeper reasoning here? Instead of just getting annoyed. And because of it, our relationship really has deepened. And I came to see that much of her reaction pattern traces back to her own problems, her own childhood, her ways of communication that maybe she needs to get a grip on and learn better from, etc. So again, understanding that really helped me connect the dots and it helped me see her as a whole person, right? As a human who has triggers, who has patterns, not just someone who was being annoying and inconveniencing me, right? And this actually played out in my own life as well just a few weeks ago because I was with two of my friends and I was reacting to something very strongly. And one of them was kind of being judgmental and being like, "I don't understand why you're acting this way. Why are you being annoying? Da 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 da." And my other friend was like, "No, this makes sense because Maria thinks this about this and this triggers her." And I remember we were all having this like conversation together, like this was all kind of happening at the same time. And in that moment, when she said that, I was like, I feel so loved right now because my friend has taken the time to understand why this is bothering me. She's taken time to read me, to understand me, to connect the dots of what I've shared with her about my past experiences and now my present reactions. So when I responded in a way that to my one friend seemed overreactive and my other friend handled it well, it was just, again, it really deepened what I felt for my one friend and it made me just very appreciative of her. So, again, I really think this is a very profound love language when someone knows your triggers and tries to really understand the why behind them and gets curious about you instead of just getting defensive. And relationships like this carry, I really think, a very deep intimacy because both people can respond to each other in ways that probably are going to strengthen their bond rather than make just everything about them and how they feel. Because something that is becoming more and more of a reality to me, and granted, a very difficult reality, is that two things can be true at the same time. Somebody can hurt you, but they also may not have meant to. And both of those things are true. And that's so hard. I also heard something else that was so amazing, kind of covering this topic, which was it's easy to yell. It's easy to get reactive. It's easy to be defensive. What's hard to do in our relationships is to get curious, to calm down, to be peaceful, to ask more questions. That's what's hard. So, all in all, I encourage you to really practice this with the people closest to you that you love, that you want to know more, that you want to better your relationship with. Stay curious, pay attention, seek to understand. And when you set aside your ego and your emotions and you realize that most of the time it has nothing to do with you, I think you often find that whatever conflict you're having, again, has little to do with you and everything to do with what's going on inside that other person and their trauma and their triggers and their past. So, again, that's when true understanding and I think love can happen. And honestly, think about how loved you would feel if the people in your life responded to you the way my friend did in that moment and the way I did to my friend in that moment. I really think if we all practice this more, we would have much more satisfying relationships and also feel a sense of protection. Okay, and now I want to get into reason number 3 of this like not getting played thing. Honestly, I think this might be the most empowering one of all because observing behavior really protects you from, I think, not feeling this. I'm not going to say never, but 90%. So here's the truth that I had to learn the hard way is that, yeah, like I said, someone can fool you, but only for a short time in the very beginning. Because after that initial period, if you keep ignoring what their behavior is showing you, you're no longer being played. I'm sorry, you are allowing it to happen. You are allowing it to happen. Now, I understand that emotions can be super involved in this. Trust me, I get it. But still, you are allowing them to have this power over you. So, when you stay objective and honest with yourself about how someone really feels about you, you stop building a fantasy version of this relationship. You see them for who they are right now, not for who you want them to be. And that awareness always puts you back in the driver's seat and it always puts the power back in your hands because you get to decide whether you want to keep them close, set boundaries, or you just want to walk away. And I've thought about this a lot in the context of especially romantic relationships. And after countless conversations with my girlfriends and about men and dating, this is the conclusion that I've come to. The truth is, men and women show you very early on how they feel about you. You just have to watch their behavior and their reactions and then be honest with yourself about it and go from there. I do think for the most part, it's that simple. I think what makes it very hard sometimes is, of course, like emotions. But again, if you're able to take your emotions out of it, I think you got it. And one book that really solidified this for me, and I really encourage every woman to pick up, is Why Men Love Bitches by Sherry Argov. And I really went into reading the book expecting a lot of do this, don't do that type of guide, but it really surprised me because most of the book was really about just human behavior, male behavior, female behavior, why we tend to behave a certain way. And what was so cool was that I really saw a lot of what she explained in myself and the men that I've dated. And over the years, I've heard my friends talk a lot about like ghosting, about like wanting more attention from their boyfriends, cheating. And, for a long time, I'd automatically just place the blame on the guy. Like, oh, he's such a jerk. You're right. Poor thing. But once I really adopted this watch their behavior approach, things became much clearer. And I'm going to give you some examples of like what I mean. If they're love bombing you in the first week, but never actually setting a time and date to see you, don't waste your time. Their behavior is telling you that they don't like their behavior is telling you that they probably like the attention and the chase, but they're not serious about building something real with you because they don't want to see you in person. If they talk to you every day for over a month, but never once mention wanting to commit or be exclusive, don't waste your time because their behavior is probably showing you that they enjoy your company. Maybe they enjoy talking to you, yes, but maybe they're probably also keeping their options open. If they consistently make you feel disrespected or unimportant, even after you've clearly communicated how their actions affect you, don't waste your time. Their behavior is telling you that your feelings aren't a priority to them. Now, notice I didn't say if he wanted to, he would, or maybe he doesn't like you, or he's a jerk. Because the truth is about this, I don't like those statements because you can't always know exactly what's going on in someone's head, especially if you don't know them well. Like humans are so complex. And I think those statements can be helpful sometimes, but I don't think they're a full glimpse of what the truth is of what's actually going on. And all you can actually know of what's actually going on is watching their behavior. And if it doesn't align with their words, I really think that's just all the information that you need. Oh my gosh, how I wish someone had told me this when I was younger. I wasted so much time and energy analyzing little things that guys would do or say and trying to decode the hidden meaning and make excuses for the behavior. And no, but he said this, but maybe he feels this. No. Like if somebody would have just told me, watch them, see how they behave and go from there, I really could have saved a lot of wasted time. And I think I would have realized that their inconsistent behavior had far more to do with their own issues than me, right? Or maybe they just didn't like me. And that's something I can accept. So I understand that this is easier said than done, especially when you really like somebody. I get it. But I believe that if both men and women learn to just watch behavior objectively, we would have a lot less pain, confusion, resentment, and just mistrust in relationships altogether. Because I am a firm believer that the signs are always there. So here's what I want you to understand. The first time someone shows you through their actions that they don't respect you or value you the way you deserve, fine. You didn't know. You were giving them the benefit of the doubt, and that's actually a beautiful quality. But after that, I'm sorry, you're letting yourself get played, especially as women, because women are so intuitive. We're so intuitive. Like, we're so intuitive, and our body tells us when something is wrong. So I think that it's just a matter of having the courage to believe what we're seeing without making excuses. Because people, I think will sit on this hill until I die. People show you who they are. You just have to have the courage to believe them. And while you're watching them, also watch yourself and see if these experiences and take these experiences as a chance to learn how you react to them. In romantic dynamics, it's easy to jump straight into blame and, oh, them, they're terrible. But often the reactions we have to how someone treats us says more about us than them being a terrible person. And I really think it's such a great way to do self development if you were talking about like a dating context. Like, dating is so great for self development. So if you take the time to sit with your feelings and reflect, these moments I really think can become opportunities to understand yourself better and to walk into your next relationship more prepared, more grounded, and hopefully less reactive. Because one of my favorite points from Why Men Love Bitches was this. She said, the most attractive quality of all is dignity. And dignity comes from knowing your worth, watching behavior for what it is, and choosing how to respond without losing yourself in the process. And I think when you master the language of behavior, you never have to wonder where you stand with someone. You never have to decode mixed signals or make excuses for treatment that doesn't align with your values. You just simply watch, understand, and choose how you respond accordingly and strategically. And that's the real power, and that's how you stay as a driver in your life. All right, so before we end this, I want to talk about the courage to live in reality. So, this brings us back to the beginning into a question I think about a lot, which is why are so few people seeing behavior as a language worth paying attention to? And I think the answer is simple because it takes time, patience, and humility to develop this skill. And most of all, it takes a willingness to be brutally honest with yourself. I mean, everything I've just mentioned really takes a lot, and it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of trial and error. It takes healthy detachment. It takes seeing things objectively. And again, this is something that you have to practice because in the beginning, we want to please people. We want to be in control. We want to have what we want, right? Like, we want to see people for what we want them to be. But I think the reason that I've been able to come to these conclusions and the reason I've been able to develop this ability, and I'm still getting there, and like read these behavioral patterns is because more than anything, something that's just been important to me is I want to live in reality. And you are always better off living in reality than an idea you crafted in your head. I'm going to repeat that. You are always better off living in reality than in an idea you crafted in your head. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to tell yourself the truth, even if it hurts your feelings and when it's uncomfortable. Because think about it. It's so much easier to make excuses for people's behavior than to see it clearly. It's easier to believe what someone tells you rather than what they show you. It's easier to hope that this time will be different rather than just accept the pattern you've been seeing. But what I've learned is that easy rarely leads to the life that you actually want to live. And when you choose to see behavior clearly, I really do think you're choosing the braver path and you're choosing to acknowledge that life contains both beauty and difficulty and that people are complex and that your job isn't to fix or change anyone. It's just to be able to see clearly and respond wisely and also have empathy for these people because most of the time, people aren't trying to do something maliciously. Like, this isn't about becoming cynical or suspicious of everyone you meet. Truly don't do that. There is such a huge difference between being naive and being wise. And I think a lot of people get confused about this. Being naive and choosing to like be willfully blind, I think means ignoring red flags and then just like hoping for the best. But being wise and being able to remove yourself from things means seeing red flags clearly and then choosing how you're going to respond. And you can still choose to give someone a chance, but make sure that you're doing it with your eyes wide open and not with blind hope. Like, please. Because again, being naive means taking everything at face value, but being wise means understanding that people's behavior often tells a different story than their words, and both pieces of information can be wise. Like, I do think there is a time and a place to have trust in people, but also to be careful. Like, take it all with a grain of salt, because being naive means making the same mistakes over and over because you refuse to learn from your patterns. But I think being wise means using each experience to allow you to become more discerning, more grounded, and just more intentional about who you let into your life. Like, think about it. It really is a very big deal who you let into your life. And what's beautiful about mastering behavior as a language is that I really think it protects you from a lot of unnecessary pain. Not all pain, but a lot of unnecessary pain, while simultaneously, I think it allows you to create deeper connections with the right people. So remember, reason one taught us that watching someone in the early stages before emotions take over gives you clarity, and it protects you from investing heavily in someone who may not be aligned with what you value or what you need. Reason two reminded us that with the people we are already deeply connected to, observation can deepen our intimacy. Understanding their patterns, their triggers, and the reasons behind them, I think, can build very strong connections and have us deal with less conflict. And reason three drove home that objectivity protects you from feeling played, because people show you who they are early on, but you have to be willing to believe what you see and act accordingly. Now, will this skill save you from pain entirely? No. Pain is inevitable in life. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. Life is tough and relationships are messy, and you're going to get hurt sometimes no matter how clearly you read people. But this skill will save you from what I like to call a lot of unnecessary pain. The kind that comes from ignoring what's right in front of you. The kind that comes from making the same mistakes repeatedly because you refuse to learn from the patterns. The kind that comes from investing your heart in people who are showing you through their actions that they don't value you. And I promise you, if somebody doesn't value, somebody else will. So it will also just help you empathize more deeply with others and with yourself, because when you learn to step back and observe and just stay curious, again, staying curious instead of getting defensive, I really think it also just helps you understand not to take things in life so personally. You're just able to start seeing behavior for what it really is, a reflection of someone's inner world, not necessarily a commentary on your worth. That person who's being difficult, they're probably struggling with something internal. That person who's pulling away, they might be going through something you don't know. They may be unhealed from their past. This doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior or let people treat you poorly. It just means you can respond from a place of understanding and power rather than defensiveness and reaction, which I think usually leads to much better outcomes for everyone involved. In all my relationships, the most helpful thing I've learned is this: having a soft curiosity towards people will take you so much further than trying to control them ever will, because most people want to be understood. And when you meet them with empathy and understanding instead of judgment, I really think this gives you the power to change the tone of your relationship. Because we all know this, we can't control what people do, but we can control how we respond to their behavior. You can't make someone treat you better, but you can choose not to accept treatment that doesn't align with your values. You can't force someone to change, but you can decide whether their current behavior fits into the life you're trying to create. That's what it means to stay in the driver's seat. That's what it means to choose the braver, harder path of living in reality while still being able and choosing to see good in the world. Because at the end of the day, I really think behavior is a language, and I think it's the most truthful language we have. And if you are willing to learn it, I genuinely believe it can change the way you move through all the relationships in your life. So here's what I want you to do: Don't try to change everything at once. Just pick one relationship and start practicing. This week, observe your mom, a friend, whoever, and observe them without judgment. Pick someone in your life and simply watch their patterns. How do they respond when they feel stressed? How do they treat others when they think no one's looking? What does their behavior tell you that their words might not be telling you? And then next week, practice curiosity over defensiveness. The next time someone triggers you or acts in a way that bothers you, instead of reacting, get curious. Ask yourself, what might be driving this behavior? What are they really communicating through their actions? And finally, the most important one, have the courage to believe what you're seeing, even if you don't like it, even if it means I have to let this person go, even if it's painful. If someone's behavior consistently doesn't align with their words, stop making excuses for them, for the love of God. You're not being mean or judgmental. You're being wise. Remember, you're the one driving, and this skill of being able to read behaviors or language will just help you drive with your eyes wide open. As I always say, life is tough, but you're tougher. And when you can read the language of behavior, it makes you powerful in information. It gives you the information you need. It makes you realize that you always have a choice. You don't need to sit there and feel taken advantage of. You have the ability to respond. Now, I know the road isn't always smooth with these things. We know this. But you do not need to be driving blind. The signs are there. The information is available to you. You just have to have the courage to see it and then act upon it with wisdom. Most people at the end of the day just want to be understood. And I think that when you learn the behavior, you have the power to transform every relationship in your life. Like, I really believe this. This is why I made this episode. And I also think it gives you the power to protect your peace and to deepen your connections and to not feel blindsided or caught off guard. But again, this means you have to be honest with yourself. But being honest with yourself is how you stay in the driver's seat. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I really hope this episode could be super, super, super helpful. I know I really enjoyed it. And this one is something that I feel like I'm still going through right now and I'm talking to myself with, but we can do it together. And yeah, I will catch you in next week's episode.